What would you do if you discovered your husband married you? Not for love, but to steal a fortune you never knew existed? Sarah thought she had the perfect life. A handsome lawyer husband, a penthouse in Manhattan, and a baby on the way. But one night, hidden in his briefcase, she found divorce papers, a private investigator's report, and a name that would change everything. Blackstone, a name her husband feared, a name connected to a billionaire brother she never knew she had, and a name tied to a criminal empire that had been hunting her family for 25 years. That night, in a crowded restaurant, her husband slapped her in front of everyone. But what he didn't know? That slap didn't break her. It awakened something far more dangerous, a woman with nothing left to lose. This is the story of how one pregnant woman took down a narcissistic predator, exposed a criminal conspiracy, and discovered that the family you choose is the family that saves you. If you've ever felt trapped, manipulated, or silenced by someone who claimed to love you, this story will show you that it's never too late to reclaim your voice and rewrite your ending. 6 months pregnant, Sarah Mitchell discovered her marriage was a lie. In a fancy Manhattan steakhouse, a place filled with happy memories, she clutched the divorce papers she had found in her husband's briefcase. Her hands were shaking. Across the table, Richard, her powerful attorney husband, cut his steak perfectly, not even looking at her. He whispered, "Keep your voice down, Sarah. People are staring." But even his whisper was a command. She looked at the papers, her proof that their entire life together was a carefully constructed sham. "These are divorce papers, Richard," she said, her voice trembling. "I found them in your briefcase." Her quiet southern accent, something she usually tried to hide, was suddenly strong. "There was also a report from a private investigator," she added. "You have been following me." Richard finally looked up, his gray eyes as cold as ice. "Those are just a precaution. You are being dramatic." "Dramatic?" Sarah shot back, feeling her face get hot. "There is a custody evaluation in here, Richard, and I know about Jennifer, your assistant." At the mention of Jennifer's name, Richard's jaw tightened. He placed his knife and fork down, slowly, a deliberate move meant to intimidate. "Jennifer is a colleague. Do not make foolish accusations." But Sarah knew. She had seen the hotel charges and the late-night credit card bills. "I may have been naive when we met, Richard, but I am not blind," she said, leaning forward. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Why did you marry me? Why get me pregnant?" She pushed a single page across the table, a page that detailed her family history, focusing on her mother's maiden name. "And what does this mean?" For the first time, Richard looked shaken. His confident mask fell away completely. "Where did you get this?" he demanded. "From your briefcase," she replied. "With everything else." A strange calm washed over Sarah. She felt like she was about to take a final exam she had not studied for. "I want the truth, Richard. All of it." The silence between them felt electric. Around them, people laughed and talked, completely unaware of the life falling apart at table 12. A waiter approached, but Richard waved him away with an irritated gesture. "The truth?" Richard's voice was dangerously low. "The truth is, you are an ungrateful woman who has no idea how good her life is. Without me, you would still be a third-grade teacher in some town nobody has heard of." He laughed, a cold, empty sound. "You want to talk about honesty? You were a project, Sarah." The words felt like a punch to the gut. The baby kicked inside her, reacting to her sudden fear. "An investment," Richard continued, "that is about to finally pay off." Sarah stared at him, truly seeing the man she married for the first time. He was not the charming man from the charity gala. He was a cold, calculating stranger. "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice barely audible. He smirked. It means I know exactly what you are worth, and it has nothing to do with your personality. This is about money, she said, the realization dawning on her. Everything is about money, Sarah, he replied, and I am about to explain reality to you. He leaned back, his corporate smile returning. You sign these papers, you take the settlement I am offering, and you can raise our child in comfort. But if you fight me, you will learn how nasty a divorce can be. He paused for effect, especially when one parent has a history of emotional outbursts and paranoid accusations. A judge might find that very concerning. The threat was clear. This was not just a divorce. It was a war for her child, designed to control her and keep her silent. You cannot do this, she whispered. I can, and I will, protect my interests. Sarah's mind raced, searching for an escape. There was a missing piece to this puzzle. The investigator's report, she said suddenly. It mentions my mother's maiden name over and over. Why? Richard's confidence wavered for a split second. Standard background check. We dated for 2 years before we married, she pushed back. You knew my history. My mother died when I was 17. Why would you care about the Blackstone name? At the word Blackstone, Richard froze. Sarah saw real fear in his eyes. It was a look she had never seen on his face before. What does the Blackstone name mean to you, Richard? Instead of answering, he lunged across the table and grabbed her wrist. His grip was painfully tight. Listen to me very carefully, he hissed. There are things about your family you do not understand. Things that need to stay buried. You will sign those papers and disappear. Sarah struggled against his grip. You are hurting me. I am protecting you from a mistake you cannot fix, he said, his voice spiraling into a strange intensity. By threatening to take my baby? She cried out. By keeping you away from people who will destroy you. She looked around for help, but he blocked the view. Let go of me, Richard. Not until you promised stop digging. No, she said, a new strength rising inside her. My family is my business. All the years of feeling small and dismissed boiled over into a single moment of clarity. My family is not you, she said, her voice ringing out across the restaurant. And I am not your property. The slap was so fast she never saw it coming. The sharp crack silenced the entire dining room. Sarah's cheek burned, and she tasted blood. In that deafening silence, surrounded by the stares of strangers, she knew her old life was officially over. Ma'am, are you all right? A waiter stood beside their table, his face pale. He was tall, with kind green eyes that seemed strangely familiar. I am fine, she managed to say, though it was obviously a lie. The waiter turned to Richard, his expression hardening. Sir, I am going to have to ask you to leave. This is a private matter, Richard snapped, but his voice had lost its power. Not anymore, the waiter said calmly but firmly. Security is on the way. You can leave on your own, or they can escort you. Richard looked around at the sea of judging faces. His perfect image was shattered. This is not over, Sarah, he spat as he stood up, throwing his napkin on the table. He stormed out, leaving Sarah alone in the spotlight. The waiter returned. Can I get you some ice for that? He asked gently. As he walked away, Sarah noticed his confident stride. When he came back with an ice pack, she looked into his eyes and felt a flicker of recognition she could not quite place. Without asking, he slid into Richard's empty chair. Forgive me for intruding, he said, but you should not be alone right now, and you definitely should not drive. I will call a cab, Sarah managed, gratefully pressing the ice pack to her cheek. He asked for her name. Sarah Mitchell, she replied, then hesitated. Or Sarah Wheeler Mitchell. I guess I do not know anymore. The name Wheeler made him pause. Wheeler, he said slowly. From Alabama? Sarah's head snapped up. How did you know that? Your accent, he began, studying her face in a way that made her skin crawl. This may sound odd, But did you ever live in Fairfield? Now she was truly unnerved. Who are you? Instead of an answer, he pulled a business card from his jacket. Sarah's world spun as she read it. Blackstone Holdings. Marcus Blackstone, Chief Executive Officer. The name struck her like a physical blow. Blackstone. It was the same name from Richard's secret report, the one that had drained the color from his face. I do not understand, Sarah whispered. Marcus looked at her with piercing, familiar green eyes. I think you do, Sarah, he said gently. You have always felt like a piece of you was missing. She stared at this man, a supposed billionaire, who had been serving her dinner just moments ago. He knew her hometown, her maiden name, and looked at her as if he had spent his whole life searching for her. Who are you? She demanded again. I am your brother, Marcus said simply, and I have been looking for you for 25 years. 3 hours later, Sarah sat in her silent penthouse, the business card in her hand. The ice had melted, but the impossible shock of his claim remained. The name Marcus Blackstone echoed in her mind. A quick online search confirmed the unbelievable. Forbes listed him as the 38th richest person in America with a net worth of $4.2 billion. His tech empire spanned 3 continents. The photo showed a man with her green eyes and a jawline that was just like their mother's. What truly stopped her, however, was an interview from 2019. In it, he described growing up in foster care in Alabama after his mother disappeared when he was 13. He spoke about turning the pain of abandonment into a powerful drive for success. I learned that love is not about blood, he had said. It is about choosing to show up for people. Sarah thought of her own mother's death and what her stepfather, Tom, had called a tragic car accident. 6 months later, he moved them to New York and changed her name from Sarah Blackstone Wheeler to just Sarah Wheeler, saying it was for a fresh start. Now she wondered if he was just trying to hide her. The apartment felt like a stage, and she felt like an actress who just discovered her whole life was a script. Her phone buzzed. It was Richard. We need to talk. She deleted his text and dialed the number on the business card. He answered on the first ring. I need to ask you something, she said, her voice shaking. Do you remember a little girl who used to read under an oak tree behind a blue house on Maple Street? There was a long silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. You had a book about a princess who saved herself. You read it so many times, the cover fell off. Sarah closed her eyes. She remembered an older boy who would sometimes bring her lemonade. Her mother called him her guardian angel. That was you, she whispered. That was me. I was 15, working at the grocery store. I always made sure to check on you. Mom said you were too little to understand why I could not live with you. We are half siblings, Marcus clarified. Same mother, different fathers. Mine was a violent man. Mom got us both away, but your father was able to give you a stable home that she just could not provide for me. Then why did no one ever tell me? Sarah cried. Because Mom made everyone promise to protect you from my father. She was terrified he would find us and use you to hurt her. After she died, your stepfather kept that promise. Tom Wheeler is a good man, Sarah. He moved you across the country because he was genuinely afraid for your life. Where is your father now? She asked. He is serving life without parole for murder. He has been in prison for 8 years. The words were like ice water. Her half-brother was a billionaire. His father was a convicted killer. Her husband had just threatened to take her baby. This is insane, she said aloud. This morning, I thought my biggest problem was postpartum depression. Tonight, I find out my husband is divorcing me because of a family I never knew I had, and my brother is one of the richest men in America. Life reveals its truths all at once sometimes, Marcus said. The question is what you want to do now. Sarah looked around the cold apartment that had never felt like a home. I want to understand what is happening to me. That will require some difficult conversations. Can you meet me tomorrow? My office, at 10 in the morning. What if Richard finds out? She asked. Sarah, he said, his voice firm, if I cannot protect my pregnant sister from one attorney, then I am not the businessman people think I am. For the first time in months, she felt someone was unconditionally on her side. Okay, she agreed, but I have conditions. I want the complete truth about everything. No more protective lies. And, she added, I want to understand what this means for my baby. I will not let my child become a pawn in Richard's game. I give you my word, Marcus promised. Your child will grow up safe and loved. Family protects family. After they hung up, Sarah felt a shift inside her, a transformation. She opened her laptop one more time, searching for a connection between Mitchell Industries and Blackstone Holdings. What she found made her stomach turn. For the last 3 years, Richard's law firm had been part of a systematic campaign of legal attacks against Marcus's companies, all designed to drain his resources and destroy his reputation. It suddenly made a terrible kind of sense. Richard had not just known about her long-lost brother, Marcus. He had been fighting a quiet war against him for years. Every late night at the office, every hushed phone call, it was not for their future. It was a methodical plan to ruin her brother's life. Sarah rested a hand on her stomach as the baby kicked. Do not worry, little one, she whispered. Your Uncle Marcus will help us fix this. For the first time, that felt like a real promise. The next morning, a gray rain fell over Manhattan. Sarah stood before the Blackstone building on Fifth Avenue, a 91-story tower of glass and steel disappearing into the clouds. The lobby was like a grand cathedral, designed to make you feel insignificant. But when she gave her name at the security desk, the guard's professional tone warmed instantly. Miss Mitchell, Mr. Blackstone asked that I bring you up myself. Right this way. The elevator ride to the 91st floor felt like an eternity, but Sarah used the time to steady herself. She had spent the night learning everything she could about Marcus Blackstone. He was a brilliant and ruthless businessman who had built an empire from nothing. But between the lines of his success stories, she found a hint of deep loneliness. He often talked about giving people second chances, about helping others overcome their past. Sarah sensed he spent 15 years trying to save everyone else because he could not save himself from the pain of losing his own family. When the elevator doors opened, she found a reception area that felt like a cozy library, not a corporate headquarters. There were warm lamps, comfortable chairs, and shelves filled with books. A woman in her 50s stood up from behind an antique desk. Miss Mitchell, I am Helen, Mr. Blackstone's assistant. He is expecting you. Marcus's office had stunning floor-to-ceiling windows with a breathtaking view of Central Park. But what Sarah noticed most was how personal the space felt. There were family photos, a worn leather armchair, and an air of quiet comfort. Marcus was looking out at the park, his back to her. When he turned around, Sarah was once again struck by how much his eyes looked like their mother's. Thank you for coming, he said. Thank you for telling me the truth, she replied. Or at least some of it. Marcus pointed to 2 chairs near the window. A single folder sat on the table between them. I would like to start with this, Sarah said, pulling a photograph from her purse. It was the only one she had. A young woman with dark hair holding a toddler, a young boy standing proudly beside them. This is our mother, with both of us. Marcus took the picture, his hand trembling slightly. I remember this day, he said, his voice soft. She had just bought you that dress with the pink flowers. You wore it for a month straight. I do not remember the dress, Sarah said, settling into a chair and placing her hands on her belly, but I remember feeling safe, like we were a family. We were, Marcus said, for a little while. Tell me everything that happened. He was quiet for a moment, tracing the edge of the old photo. Our father, Victor Blackstone, was a violent man, an alcoholic who could not keep a job. Mom tried to make it work, but by the time I was 10, she was planning our escape. Both of you? Sarah asked. That was the plan. She saved money and was ready to disappear with us, but Victor found out. Sarah's heart tightened. What did he do? He put me in the hospital for a week, Marcus said, his voice flat. He told Mom that if she ever tried to leave with his children, he would find us and kill all three of us. You have to understand, we were not his children to him. We were his property to control. His casual threats about her sanity and custody of their child were just like their father's. He saw his wife and child as property. Marcus explained that their mother had to make an impossible choice to save one of them, rather than lose them both. She took you and ran, he said, promising to come back for me. But with a man like our father, Victor, it was never safe. He spent 2 years searching for you, hiring private investigators, and using his criminal connections. Our mother lived in constant fear. The dynamic only changed when Marcus turned 13. He was finally big enough to fight back. When Victor came home drunk and started on him, Marcus put him in the hospital with a broken jaw. After that, Victor left him alone, but became even more obsessed with finding you. Marcus continued, saying their father wanted to teach their mother a lesson about taking his property. He never found her, but he did track down your stepfather, Tom Wheeler. Tom called your mom in a panic, telling her someone was asking questions about you at school. So she made another terrible choice. She told Tom to take you and disappear completely. She knew Victor would use you to hurt her and then eliminate all of you to hide his crimes. Tom, who truly loved you, agreed. He moved you to New York, legally adopted you, and gave you a life where Victor Blackstone could never find you. As for Marcus and their mom, they decided the safest path was for him to enter the foster care system. The plan was for her to stay hidden until Victor gave up. But that never happened. He was in and out of prison for the next 4 years, always threatening to find you. Sarah held her breath. And then our mother died in a car accident when you were 17, Marcus said, but his tone was sharp. You do not think it was an accident, do you? I think she was exhausted after 5 years of hiding, he said carefully. I think she was driving too fast in a storm because she was rushing to meet someone who claimed to have information on Victor. I cannot prove it, but her death was just too convenient. You think he had her killed? Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Our father, Marcus corrected softly. And yes, I think it's possible. Victor never admitted it, but he was never surprised she died right when she was trying to find us. The baby kicked, and Sarah gasped. Marcus immediately reached for her hand. He cannot hurt you now, Sarah. Victor is locked away for good. He has no outside contacts, and he does not know where you are. You are safe. But Richard knows who I am, she whispered. Which brings us to the question that has kept me awake for 3 years, Marcus said. How does your husband know family secrets that took me a decade and a small fortune to uncover? Sarah thought about the investigator's report and Richard's reaction to her family name. My marriage was never about love, she said slowly. It was about getting access to something. Marcus opened a folder and pushed a document toward her that made her heart sink. Blackstone Holdings has a unique corporate structure, he explained. It allows any direct blood relative to claim a significant stake if certain conditions are met. What kind of conditions? marriage, children, and proof of a genetic relationship. I set it up to protect any family I might have someday, to make sure money could never tear us apart the way poverty did. The awful truth began to dawn on her like a cold sunrise. Richard married me to get your money through our child. I think someone told him marrying a Blackstone heir would eventually pay off, Marcus replied. The real question is who? Sarah remembered how Richard had always been generous, but controlling, insisting on handling all their legal and financial affairs. He has been playing a long game, she said. The scale of the deception was a physical blow. She had spent 6 years loving a man who only saw her as a path to a fortune she never knew existed. He was going to steal my inheritance and my child, Sarah said, a surge of anger rising inside her. That appears to have been the plan, until you found those papers. Marcus smiled, but for the first time, he looked genuinely dangerous. Now, we figure out who has been feeding Richard information. And then, we make sure anyone who tries to use a Blackstone learns why that is a very bad idea. For the first time, she saw not just a businessman, but the determined boy he must have been. I want to help, she said. This is my child they are planning to use as a bargaining chip, Sarah insisted. I am not sitting on the sidelines. Marcus studied her face, then nodded. You have mom's backbone. Okay, we do this together, but we do it smart, and we do it safe. The first step is moving you somewhere Richard cannot find you. I cannot just disappear, she protested. I have responsibilities, all of which can be handled with better security, Marcus said firmly. I have spent 25 years wondering what happened to my sister. I am not losing you again. Sarah thought of Richard's threats and the cold calculation in his eyes. Okay, she agreed, but no more secrets. I want to know everything we are dealing with. Agreed, Marcus said. First, I want you to meet someone who has been helping me, a private investigator named Detective Maria Santos. She thinks your husband's connection to our family goes back much further than we realized. As if on cue, the office door opened. A woman in her 40s entered, holding a thick file, her expression grim. Miss Mitchell, she said, we need to talk. Detective Maria Santos settled into a chair, her sharp eyes missing nothing. She opened her file with the care of someone handling evidence. Before we start, she said to Sarah, I need you to understand that this will change how you see everyone in your life. Are you ready? Sarah looked at her brother's tense posture. I do not think I have a choice anymore. There is always a choice, Maria countered. You could walk away. Lots of people would consider that the smart move. She pulled out a photograph and placed it on the table. Sarah looked at the picture, and her world tilted. That is my stepfather, Tom Wheeler. The photo showed him outside Richard's office building, taken only 3 weeks ago. Tom has been talking to Richard? More than talking, Maria said. According to my sources, he has been providing Richard with detailed information about your family for over 2 years. That is impossible, Sarah whispered. Tom protected me from all of this. He did, Maria agreed, and he has been terrified ever since that he made the wrong choice. What do you mean? Marcus leaned forward. Tom has carried guilt about your mother's death for 25 years, Maria explained. He blames himself for not keeping your family together. 2 years ago, someone approached Tom claiming to work for Richard. They said they were arranging a family reunion and needed background information to make sure the process was safe. Tom wanted to believe them. He saw it as a chance to finally do the right thing after all these years. So he told them everything, Sarah said, feeling sick. Everything, Maria confirmed. Your new name, your marriage, your husband. He thought he was helping to heal your family. Instead, he was giving Richard the ammunition to destroy it. Maria exchanged a look with Marcus. It gets worse. They kept asking more questions about your mother's last days, about Victor Blackstone's threats. Why? Because Victor did not stop being dangerous in prison. He runs a criminal organization from the inside, and his two sons from his first marriage are very interested in making sure no one challenges their claim as his only heirs, so they can claim all the money he hid before he went to prison. What money? Maria slid another document across the table. That is the million-dollar question. Victor Blackstone was a monster, but he was also smart. He stashed a fortune in accounts nobody can find. All of it from his criminal operations that the FBI never touched. Marcus sat perfectly still. How much are we talking about? The low-end guess is $10 million. It could be as high as $50 million. That is more than enough to make people want to remove anyone standing in their way. Sarah felt the air leave her lungs. Someone like me. Exactly. And any children you might have. According to Alabama law, all of Victor's biological children have a claim to his estate. It does not matter if they were born in a marriage or not. So Richard was not just after Marcus's money. He was setting up our baby to inherit a piece of Victor's hidden fortune. Maria nodded. He was playing every angle. Marry into the Blackstone family, get his hands on Marcus's clean money, and then use his own child to stake a claim on Victor's dirty money. Sarah looked at Marcus and saw the same fear in his eyes that she felt in her heart. Who exactly are we up against? At the very least, Victor's two sons and whoever they are working with. Then there is Richard and his partners. Plus, you have all the dangerous people Victor owed money to who have been waiting for decades to get paid. The sheer size of the conspiracy was suffocating. She thought she was just dealing with a cheating husband. Instead, she was trapped in a family crime saga spanning generations with millions of dollars at stake and people who had already proven they were willing to kill. What about Tom? She asked. Tom is filled with regret and is completely terrified, Maria said. Once he understood what he had dragged you into, he tried to get out. But it was too late. They had enough on him to ruin his life if he did not cooperate. We have to help him, Sarah insisted. We will, Marcus promised. But our first priority is keeping you safe, because when Victor's sons find out Richard's plan has failed, they will start looking for a more direct way to solve their problem. What could be more direct than this? Sarah felt a chill as Marcus and Maria shared another worried glance. There was something else. Marcus gave Maria a slight nod. Show her. Maria reluctantly produced one last file. It was a timeline. These are important dates from your family's history, matched up with some very telling coincidences. Sarah read through it, her confusion growing. I do not get it. Your mother's car accident, Maria pointed out, happened 2 days after Victor's final appeal was denied. Richard came into your life 6 months after Marcus's company went public, which made his net worth public knowledge. And your stepfather was first contacted by Richard's associates just 1 week after Victor's sons got out of prison. You think this was all planned out for years? I think this has been in the works since the day your mother died, Marcus said darkly. I think Victor's sons have been watching our family for decades, just waiting for the right opportunity to take what they believe is theirs. And Richard was either the perfect opportunist who stumbled into their plan, or he has been working for them from the start. We are still figuring that part out, Maria added. The weight of all the lies was crushing. So, everyone in my life has been lying to me? My husband? My stepfather? Who else? Not everyone, Marcus said softly. Tom did care for you, and he tried to do the right thing, even if he failed. And now you have us. We will do whatever it takes to protect you. What does that mean? Maria leaned forward. It means you disappear. We give you a new name, a secure home, and round-the-clock protection until the baby is born. We will keep you hidden until we have neutralized every single person who thinks they have a claim on this family. How long will that take? Months? maybe even longer. Sarah pictured herself hidden away for the rest of her pregnancy, letting other people fight her battles. The idea was a relief, but also deeply unsettling. What if I do not want to disappear? What if I want to fight? Then you are putting yourself and your baby in extreme danger, Marcus stated flatly. These people have already killed once, Sarah. They will not think twice about doing it again. You really believe they killed my mother? I think your mother's accident was incredibly convenient for people who needed her out of the way, he replied. Sarah rested her hands on her stomach, feeling the baby move. For the first time, she truly understood this was not just about her anymore. Her choices would define the life of an innocent child who deserved to grow up safe, far from the shadows that had haunted her own life. Okay, she said, her voice firm. I will go, but I want updates on everything, and I want to say and how we end this. I refuse to spend my life constantly looking over my shoulder because we were afraid to handle this for good. What are you saying? I am saying it is time the Blackstone family stopped running from Victor's legacy and started to fight. A slow smile spread across Marcus's face, revealing a fierce determination. Now you sound like a Blackstone, he said. The safe house was a massive estate in the Hamptons with top-of-the-line security. It should have been paradise. But after 3 weeks of being isolated in luxury, Sarah was going stir-crazy. You're pacing again, Dr. Elizabeth Hartman noted from her chair. The obstetrician Marcus hired visited twice a week, checking on both Sarah's health and her state of mind. I am pregnant, not a fragile doll, Sarah shot back, continuing her path around the room. I am losing my mind just sitting here while everyone else runs my life. Your brother is just trying to protect you. My brother is trying to manage a situation that has been out of control for 25 years. There is a big difference. Dr. Hartman set her chart aside and looked at Sarah with intense focus. Tell me about the nightmares. Sarah stopped. For weeks she had the same recurring dream. It was always her mother, driving in a storm, shouting Sarah's name just before her car crashed. They are just stress dreams, she mumbled. It is just the anxiety. Trauma shows up in many ways, especially during pregnancy, the doctor explained gently. The hormonal shifts and the emotional shock you have been through are the perfect recipe for your mind to try and process everything. Are you saying I am having a breakdown? I am saying your reaction is completely normal for someone who just discovered their entire life was built on a lie. The real question is, are you going to let that trauma control your future? Or are you going to take charge of your own story? Sarah sank into a chair, the exhaustion finally hitting her. I do not know how to take control. I do not even know what I am fighting against. Then maybe it is time you stopped fighting their battles and started fighting for what you want. What do you mean? You are here because your brother wants you to be safe. But what do you want, Sarah? If you could decide how this all ends, what would that look like? Sarah considered the question that had been echoing in her mind for weeks. What did she want? She had spent months just reacting to secrets and plans made by other people. I want my child to grow up free, she said at last. Free from all the violence that defined my family. Free from people who view a child as just a tool to get what they want. Free from the fear that forced my mother to run instead of fight. That is a good start, the doctor encouraged. What else? I want the truth, all of it, about how my mother died, about Victor Blackstone's money, and about who has been pulling the strings in my life. I am done being a character in a story where I do not even know the plot. And what about just for you, for Sarah? Not as a mother, or a sister, or a victim. The question surprised her. She had been defined by her relationships for so long, she had forgotten to think about herself. I want to matter, she said softly. I was married for 6 years to a man who only saw me as a way to get something. I want to be valued for who I am, not for what I can give someone. Do you think that is possible in your current situation? Sarah glanced around the beautiful cage Marcus had built for her. She thought about the guards outside and the cameras watching every door. Not if I stay hidden forever, she admitted. Not if I let other people make all the decisions for me. Dr. Hartman nodded. So, what would taking control look like? I do not know. I do not have the money or the skills to fight these people on my own. But you have a brother who does, the doctor countered. The choice is whether you want to be his partner in this fight, or just someone he protects. Before Sarah could form an answer, her phone buzzed. It was Marcus. She was expecting his daily check-in, but the tension in his voice immediately set her on edge. Sarah, we have a problem. We need to talk. Can Dr. Hartman stay? As if on cue, Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face hardened. What is wrong? Sarah asked. It is Maria. She has new information about Richard. We know why he is so confident about the divorce. He put the call on speaker. Tell me, Sarah said. The voice on the phone was clear and urgent. Richard has been building a case to have you declared mentally incompetent. He is documenting what he calls your emotional instability and paranoid behavior. He plans to argue that the stress of the pregnancy and finding your family has caused a psychological break, making you an unfit mother. The words felt like a punch to the gut. He cannot do that. He can, the voice replied, and he has been creating the evidence for months. Medical records about your anxiety, witness statements about your emotional state, and he is painting your accusations about his affair as paranoid delusions. Dr. Hartman confirmed Sarah's fears. Richard planned to use her reaction to being slapped in the restaurant as proof of instability. Worse, he intended to argue that her connection to Marcus, with his family's history of violence, showed poor judgment that could endanger her child. The doctor explained how clever this was. Since pregnancy-related mental health issues are very real, Richard could convince a judge she was suffering from postpartum psychosis. This would give him full custody and control of her finances. Sarah was shaking. Richard had already filed the paperwork. She had only 30 days to respond before an emergency hearing could be called. Fighting it would mean she had to stop hiding and become visible and active in her own defense. Sarah knew what she had to do. She told Marcus she needed to return to the city. He immediately refused, saying it was not safe. She argued that looking like she was hiding from her problems was even more dangerous. If Richard was building a case that she was unstable, disappearing for weeks would only support his claim. Dr. Hartman agreed with Sarah. She said that extended isolation could actually harm mental health. To fight the case, Sarah needed to show she was engaged with her life and making rational choices. Marcus insisted the threats were real, but Sarah was firm. They had to deal with the threats while she lived her life, not by putting it on hold forever. You do not understand how dangerous these people are, Marcus said. Sarah shot back. And you do not understand how dangerous it is for a woman to let other people make all her decisions. After a long silence, Marcus's tone changed. He asked what she was proposing. Sarah said it was time to stop playing defense and go on offense. Instead of letting Richard use her family history against her, they would use it for her. They would take control of the story. Instead of hiding from the Blackstone legacy, they would embrace it, to expose everyone who had tried to exploit it. Dr. Hartman was intrigued. Sarah turned to Marcus, reminding him that he had built an empire on the idea that people can overcome their circumstances. It was time to tell her story publicly and take away Richard's power. Instead of letting him paint me as an unstable woman, I decided to tell my own story. The story of a woman who found her brother and chose to fight for her family. Marcus warned me it was risky, but Richard was filing his case either way. At least this way, I was in control. As for the threats from Victor's sons, they had operated in the shadows for 25 years, relying on secrecy and fear, but that power vanishes when the whole world is watching. Dr. Hartman agreed. This was not the reasoning of an unstable woman. It was the reasoning of someone who was ready to fight back. "Marcus, I need to come home," I said. "I have to be part of this." The line went quiet, and when he finally spoke, his voice was filled with a pride I had never heard before. "Okay, sister," he said. "Let's go to war." My return to Manhattan felt surreal. The apartment I once shared with Richard was now a fortress, complete with reinforced doors and panic rooms disguised as closets. "This feels excessive, but," I said, watching two security experts test alarms. "This is necessary," Marcus replied, looking at a tablet filled with security data. "Our intelligence says Victor's sons are getting impatient. They want to eliminate the competition instead of just outmaneuvering it." I placed a hand on my belly. At 7.5 months pregnant, I felt like I was carrying a basketball, but the doctor said we were both healthy despite the stress. I asked about Richard. He called and sent flowers every day, playing the part of a concerned husband whose wife was being manipulated. Marcus's expression grew grim. "His legal case is stronger than we'd like. He has statements from your old colleagues and neighbors questioning your judgment and behavior." Richard was framing everything as psychological instability, triggered by pregnancy and trauma. Our lawyer, Maria, could prove he had been planning the divorce for years, that he married me under false pretenses. But without proof of criminal fraud, it would become a he said she said situation in family court, where my pregnancy and family history would be used against me. I looked around the room that no longer felt like home. What if we do not wait for court? What if we take this public first? Marcus had already been thinking about it. He explained the benefits. First, we would take away Richard's ability to claim I was having a breakdown by showing everyone I was lucid and rational. Second, we would force Victor's sons out of the shadows. A public investigation would either make them retreat or make a mistake that would expose them. And third, a public story could protect other people from facing similar tactics in the future. Something clicked in my mind. "I want to do it," I said, "but I want to tell the complete story." I explained that this was not just about Richard's manipulation. It was about narcissistic abusers and the cost of family secrets. If I was going to put my life and my baby's future on the line, I wanted it to matter for more than just a custody battle. Before Marcus could reply, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Something told me to answer. "Hello, Sarah." It was Tom, my stepfather. His voice sounded older, more fragile. Hearing it brought a complicated mix of love and anger. "I need to see you, Sarah," he said. "There are things I need to tell you. Things about your mother's last days, and about the people who have been asking questions about you." "Tom, are you in danger?" I asked, as Marcus signaled our security team. "We all are, sweetheart," he whispered. I told him I forgave him for talking to Richard's people, that I understood he was scared. A long silence followed, and I thought he might be crying. "You are always too willing to see the best in people," he finally said. "It's what made you vulnerable to people like Richard." He paused. "Sarah, Richard did not meet you by accident. He was hunting you." A cold dread spread through my chest. "Hunting me?" Tom explained that Richard had been tracking me for months before we ever met. He learned my schedule, my interests, and my emotional weak spots. The people who had approached Tom for information showed him photos of me going to work, to the grocery store, to my book club. My fairy tale romance had been nothing more than an elaborate stalking operation. The charming man who swept me off my feet had been a predator all along. Imagine being hunted by men your father wronged 25 years ago. That was Sarah's reality. The baby inside her kicked hard, sensing her terror. Tom, listen, she pleaded into the phone with her brother. Go to the police, now. Tell them you have information on organized crime and your life is in danger. The line went dead. This was about more than just hiding. It was about fighting back. If you have ever felt powerless, you know the moment when you decide enough is enough. Turning to her other brother, Marcus, she asked, "How fast can you set up a press conference?" She would not let her child be born into a world of fear. Why? Marcus asked. Because I am done letting predators operate in the open while their victims are forced to hide. Seeing a new fire in her eyes, he simply nodded. How soon can you be ready? Sarah replied, I have been ready my entire life. The press conference was set for Thursday, but by Wednesday night, doubt crept in. The media response was huge. Every major news network planned to be there. This was going to be a massive story. Any word from Richard? Sarah asked, referring to her manipulative husband. His lawyer called 3 times, Marcus said. He is panicking because once you tell your story, his lies about your mental health fall apart. Just then, their lawyer, Maria Santos, entered the room holding a thick folder. We have a problem, she said, her voice grim. Sarah's stomach clenched. What kind of problem? Maria spread several photos across the desk. They showed unfamiliar men in dark cars, watching Marcus's buildings. Surveillance, Marcus stated flatly. Maria shook her head. It is more than that.
Also,
3 of these men have criminal records, Maria explained, all tied to Victor Blackstone's organization. They are not just watching, they are sending a message that says your family has their attention. Sarah felt the baby kick again. Are we in immediate danger? She asked. We are dealing with people who are now facing national media attention, Marcus said gravely. That makes them dangerously unpredictable. He was already on the phone with his security team. We have options, he said after hanging up. We can postpone the press conference and move you to a safe house, Maria suggested. But that could take months. No, Sarah protested. While I hide, Richard moves forward with his plan to take my baby. It is better than you getting hurt, Maria argued. Is it? Sarah shot back. Is it better for my child to be raised by a man who abused their mother and planned to steal their inheritance? There was another option. Marcus leaned forward. We move the conference to a secure location and force their hand. We do not just tell your story about Richard. We tell the whole story about Victor's criminal network and the threats against our family. A sudden clarity washed over Sarah. We make it impossible for them to hide in the shadows anymore. Exactly, Marcus agreed. And we do it with the FBI present, making any retaliation a federal crime. Maria looked worried. You are declaring war on killers. They declared war on us 25 years ago, Marcus countered. We are just now fighting back. Sarah thought of her mother, her brother Tom in hiding, and the innocent baby inside her. I will do it, she said, her voice firm. I want law enforcement there, and protection for Tom. Already arranged, Marcus confirmed. The FBI has been investigating Victor for years. They are eager for a cooperative witness. This would change the entire narrative. It was no longer a messy divorce. It was the story of a woman who discovered her family was being targeted by organized crime and chose to fight back. A strange calm settled over Sarah. Sometimes the only way out is to charge straight through. For the next 4 hours, she worked with Marcus and Maria, crafting her statement. It had to be precise, powerful, and true. You need to sound like someone taking control of your story, Maria advised, not someone who has lost control of it. As they worked, something clicked in Sarah's mind. I know why Victor's sons are making their move now. she announced. They could have tried to claim his assets years ago. Why me? Why now? Marcus looked at her, intrigued. What is your theory? They had to be sure Victor was never getting out of prison, she explained. His final appeal was permanently denied 6 months ago. For the first time in 25 years, they know he will die in there. Now they can make a play for his empire. Maria nodded, but only if they eliminate any other potential heirs first. You and your child. Sarah placed a hand on her stomach. So stopping my husband, Richard, does not stop the real threat. No, Marcus said, a proud, fierce smile spreading across his face. But exposing the larger threat stops him and protects everyone else. You know what I realized tonight? You have stopped thinking like you are being hunted. You have started thinking like the hunter. As I processed the truth, I felt a change inside me. I was no longer the prey. I had become the predator. Is that good or bad? Marcus asked me later. It's survival, I said. And it is exactly what is going to keep me and my baby safe. We looked out at the city, knowing the next day would change everything. I made him promise that no matter what happened, we would not let fear make our decisions anymore. We would face whatever came next as a family, together in the light. Marcus agreed, but only if Sarah promised to let him move her and the baby to safety if the threats grew too large. Sarah looked at her brother and saw the same protective instinct that drove their mother 25 years ago. I will always prioritize my baby's safety, she promised. But I will not hide while others fight my battles. Those days are over. Marcus nodded. On Thursday morning, Sarah stood in the office bathroom, pregnant and feeling the weight of the world. But looking in the mirror, she saw a steady determination that had not been there 6 months earlier when Richard slapped her. She was ready. The press conference was set for 10 a.m. in the main conference room, which was now filled with cameras, microphones, and security. Marcus tried one last time to get her to call it off. Sarah refused. She was done letting other people decide her future. Just then, Maria Santos entered with urgent news from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Victor's sons had made contact that morning. They wanted to negotiate. Sarah's heart pounded. They were offering to back off completely in exchange for her silence about their family's illegal businesses. It was a clear sign that her plan to go public was already working. They offered Sarah a deal. She could have her safety back, but it would cost her the truth. The powerful Blackstone family promised to leave her alone, but only if she publicly gave up any claim to their fortune and agreed to never ask how her own mother died. Marcus, her brother, thought she should consider it, but Sarah saw it for what it was. They wanted her to promise, and for her unborn child to promise, that they would never seek answers about their own family. It was an impossible choice. A wave of anger washed over Sarah. They wanted her to choose ignorance and fear, just like her mother had been forced to. Marcus urged her to think of the safety it offered, but Sarah saw it differently. This was the same kind of bargain that had trapped their family for generations. Then Maria, their lawyer, revealed a small surprise. The FBI believed this offer was a sign of weakness. The Blackstones were more afraid of public exposure than anyone realized. Suddenly, Sarah understood they had more power than they thought. With newfound clarity, Sarah made her choice. She would not take their deal. She refused to trade the truth for a promise from men who had terrorized her. She would not teach her child to back down from bullies. Just as she announced her decision to hold a press conference and tell the whole story, there was a knock on the door. It was her stepfather, Tom. He was safe, with FBI agents, and he needed to speak with her alone. Tom Wheeler looked older. The stress of the past weeks etched on his face. He held a thick manila envelope. He told her there were things he should have shared years ago, but he had been too afraid. Inside, Sarah found photographs she had never seen. They were pictures of her mother, Maria Blackstone, as a young woman, looking happy and confident. Sarah hugged him, careful of her growing belly, and listened to a story that would change everything. In one photo, her mother stood beside a man Sarah did not recognize. Tom explained that he was Detective James Morrison. He was the police officer who had been investigating the Blackstone family's criminal activities. He had helped her mother plan an escape. Sarah stared at the picture, seeing a spark of hope in her mother's eyes. For the first time, her mother believed she could get both of her children to safety. But then, Detective Morrison was killed in what police called a robbery. Her mother never believed it. Her mother was certain that Victor Blackstone had him killed. She was terrified that anyone else who tried to help would meet the same fate. Tom then showed Sarah another document. It was Detective Morrison's final report, detailing money laundering and drug trafficking. The major revelation came next. The detective had a partner who had secretly continued his investigation for 25 years. That partner, now a senior FBI agent named Patricia Collins, was waiting downstairs. Agent Collins had been waiting a quarter of a century for someone from the Blackstone family to help her finish what she and Detective Morrison started. Sarah trembled as she realized the truth. Telling her story was not just about protecting herself anymore. It was about getting justice for a murdered detective and countless other victims. She looked at her stepfather and asked the one question she dreaded. Was Mom's car accident really an accident? Tom's face was heavy with guilt. No, he said softly. I think she was murdered. Those words did not break her. They forged her resolve into steel. Then it's time to finish what she started, Sarah declared. A few minutes later, she stood at a podium in a room full of reporters and federal agents. She felt a surprising sense of calm. My name is Sarah Wheeler Mitchell, she began, her voice steady. 6 months ago, I thought I was a former school teacher expecting my first child. Today I am here to tell you the difference between the life you think you have and the one being lived around you. She looked straight into the camera, thinking of others who might see themselves in her story. She spoke about the family secrets meant to protect, but which only isolated. She spoke of the courage it takes to choose truth over the illusion of safety. For the next 30 minutes, she laid out the entire story of manipulation and threats. Mostly, she said, I am here to talk about what happens when you stop letting other people tell your story and start telling it yourself. The impact was immediate and decisive. Within 48 hours, Richard, her manipulative husband, was fired from his law firm. The ridiculous competency case he had filed against her was dropped. He quickly filed for an uncontested divorce, wanting to avoid any more public scrutiny. Sarah had not just reclaimed her life, she had exposed a web of lies that had stretched for decades. By choosing to fight, she had found justice, not just for herself, but for her mother, and had finally taught the Blackstone family a lesson about underestimating a woman who had nothing left to lose. The threats from Victor's sons had vanished into radio silence. The media attention had made targeting her too risky. The immediate danger was over, but that was not all. Marcus walked in with a thick legal folder. The investigation into Victor's organization had uncovered enough evidence for federal charges against 12 people, including his sons. They could now close cases that had been open for decades. Even a detective's murder. Financial records proved that payments for the murder traced directly back to Victor's accounts. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. Their mom was murdered for trying to protect them. Marcus gently corrected her. She was murdered for refusing to let violent men control her family's future. And because she fought back, we now have the evidence to stop them for good. I have to do something with this, she said suddenly. Her mind flashed to the images Tom had shown her, of the mother who gave her life to shield her children from a monster. I am going to start a foundation. It will help women escape from controlling relationships and give them legal power to expose family secrets that put them in danger. Marcus offered a supportive smile. What kind of money are we talking about? Whatever it takes, she answered. I will use my share of Victor's seized assets, plus whatever I win from Richard's financial schemes. This whole nightmare has to become something good for other people. What will you name it? Sarah thought of her mother's courage, of Detective Morrison's tireless work, and of all the women fighting silent battles who deserve to be heard. The Maria Morrison Foundation, she announced, for both of them. It will stand for truth and justice, and for the idea that safety and honesty should never be a choice. 6 weeks later, Sarah gave birth to a daughter. She named her Maria Rose Mitchell Blackstone, honoring her mother and the new family she had built. Marcus was there, crying more than the baby, completely changed by seeing new life come into a world that finally felt secure. She is perfect, he whispered, holding his niece with a gentle reverence. He never expected to be an uncle. She is a Blackstone, Sarah said, exhausted but triumphant. She is going to change the world. The foundation held its first meeting in the same Blackstone Holdings conference room where Sarah had exposed everything. 30 women attended, each a survivor of manipulation, each working to rebuild a life based on truth. I used to think family was just something that happened to you, Sarah began. With her daughter Maria sleeping soundly nearby, Sarah shared a hard-won truth with the women in the room. I have learned that real family is not something you are born into. It is something you choose, build, and fight for. And often, the family you choose is what truly saves you. The others nodded, seeing their own struggles in her words. They were all there because they had chosen difficult truths over comfortable lies, and their own voices over the stories others tried to write for them. The most vital lesson, she concluded, is that we don't heal from our pain in isolation. We heal together as a community. Later, Marcus joined her at his office window and asked if she had any regrets. Sarah considered the question. I regret that it took me 37 years to understand that I actually had choices, she said. I regret that my mother died thinking she had to keep us separated just to protect us. So what is next for you? Marcus asked. Looking down at her sleeping daughter, Sarah knew the answer. We continue the fight. We keep speaking the truth. We build the kind of family my mother always dreamed of. 1 year later, she was standing in the same Manhattan restaurant where her entire world had fallen apart. But this time, she was there for a celebration. It was the first fundraising dinner for the Maria Morrison Foundation. The room was filled with supporters, survivors, and advocates. Everything feels different now, Sarah said to Marcus, adjusting a curious 10-month-old Maria on her hip. It is a good kind of different, an honest different. The evening was filled with powerful testimonies from women the foundation had helped with legal support and counseling. The most significant moment for Sarah came when Agent Patricia Collins approached her. I wanted to thank you, the Federal Bureau of Investigation agent said, her voice serious. Because of your courage, we finally closed your father's murder case. His family has been waiting decades for answers. She confirmed that Victor had ordered the murder. While they could never prove it directly in court, they had enough to convict the men who followed his orders. Do you think we have really stopped them? Sarah asked. The agent was realistic. We have seriously disrupted their operations. 3 of Victor's sons are in federal prison. But she admitted, that organized crime often finds a way to regrow. The important thing is that we sent a clear message that these actions will have severe consequences. Sarah learned that Richard was serving 18 months in a minimum security prison for financial fraud. He would lose his law license and most of his money. That is not my problem anymore, she thought. Later that evening, she talked with a psychologist and a lawyer who specialized in abuse. They confirmed that most abusers follow a similar pattern, a kind of playbook for control that they disguise as love and protection. The tactics work because they prey on our basic human need for love and security, Sarah said. That is why what you are doing is so important, the psychologist replied. Every woman who hears your story might recognize a piece of her own. Sarah then shared her biggest realization with them. I have been thinking a lot about the difference between justice and healing. I used to believe they were the same thing, she explained. But justice was an external process. That happened when Richard was prosecuted. Healing was an internal process. That began when I started telling my own story and refused to let anyone else define my worth. She realized too many people wait for justice before they allow themselves to heal. And family, she added, looking over at Marcus, is about the people who show up for you, who support your growth instead of trying to control it. As the night ended, Sarah stood in the exact spot where Richard had slapped her 13 months before. The memory was there, but it no longer had any emotional power. Thinking about that night? Marcus asked, appearing at her side with a sleeping Maria. I would tell my former self that the slap was not the worst thing that happened, she said. The worst thing was all the years I convinced myself that being treated as less than equal was normal. The best thing? That slap finally made me angry enough to stop accepting it. And I am so proud that we fought back. As Sarah gently took her sleeping daughter from Marcus, she couldn't help but wonder at the love and hope bundled in such a small child. Marcus looked at his niece and asked, "What do you hope for her?" Sarah's answer was ready. I want Maria to know her own value. I want her to learn that real love makes you feel bigger, not smaller. And I want her to understand that she always has a choice, no matter how hard it is. She glanced around the room, no longer seeing a place of humiliation, but the start of her new life. I want her to know that her mother chose bravery over a comfortable lie, and that her family's true legacy is standing up to people who use love as a weapon. Just then, the waiter from that awful night approached them, his smile genuine. Miss Mitchell, he began, I saw your story on the news. Watching you that night gave me the courage to finally leave a bad relationship I was trapped in. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. I am so happy you are safe now. He nodded enthusiastically. I am, and I am even applying to law school. I want to help people just like your foundation helped me. After he left, Marcus shook his head in wonder. You get it, right? Your story is creating waves you cannot even see. People you will never meet are making better choices because you decided to speak up. That is the thing about the truth, Sarah said, her voice soft. Once you let it out, it takes on a life of its own, changing things in ways you never could have predicted. She thought about the quiet, small life she could have had if she had just taken Richard's deal and vanished. Safe, maybe, but built on lies. No regrets, she said with certainty. I am just grateful I got the chance to be the person I was always meant to be. Walking out into the cool spring air, she felt a sense of peace. She had lost a false marriage, but gained a true family. She had given up the illusion of safety for the reality of her own strength. The rain had stopped, leaving the city sparkling under the streetlights. Sarah pulled Maria's blanket tighter and walked toward her future, her brother at her side. Behind them, the restaurant buzzed with new stories, its patrons unaware that the woman leaving had learned how to turn her pain into a purpose. She had transformed betrayal into wisdom, and her silence into a voice that would inspire other women to find their own. Sarah had come full circle, but this new circle was bigger and stronger, built on a foundation of truth that could weather any storm model. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me, have you ever had to choose truth over a comfortable lie? Share this with someone who needs to hear that they're not alone. And subscribe so you don't miss stories that remind us. Real strength isn't about never falling. It's about choosing to rise. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful lessons and inspiration. Thank you for watching.